Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
You know, I believe what I recall. The most notable thing about Clint Eastwood is that roughly a year. Most people later recall Robert Urich as the rough, affable, and robust man from Spenser, for hire in Vegas, for example. On screen, he always radiated strength, authority, and a willingness to face enemies. However, off-screen, his actual it was a completely different story in life. Behind Robert was engaged in combat with the cameras, much more dramatic than any screenplay could hurl at him. He wasn't. Fighting, though, by itself. Actress Heather Menses, his wife, remained by his side the entire time. And this is where the narrative takes a different turn. Tragic turn. Only a few years later on, life also gave her a surprise manner. What became to the relationship then? Come along with us today as we reclaim the "Let's put a lid on this one." From Toronto, Ohio to the forefront. Few actors are able to boast that you have starred in 15 different shows on television, but Robert Urich wasn't an ordinary actor. With that silky, such as a smooth voice, a sharp jaw, and that reassuring appeal of every man, he kindled for 30 years up the screen. Millions, witnessed a famous figure who consistently emerged victorious. Behind the scenes showed a man battling issues that weren't Hollywood could write a script to. Robert. The narrative of Urich begins in the sleepy town, not from Canada, but from Toronto, Ohio. Born to John Paul and Monica Urich, Cecilia Roberts' ancestry was Slovak and Rusine. Had a Byzantine Catholic upbringing. He was your quintessential American. Child, an outstanding sportsman, a born leader, and someone who consistently appeared to be destined for more. He was awarded a scholarship to play football, visit the fun-filled Florida State University in actuality. He encountered fellow Burt Reynolds, future star. Robert performed at the football team's backup center, but on the pitch was not where his true magic existed. He obtained a degree in television and radio communications before moving forward. Further, with a broadcast master's degree, Michigan-based management and research State University. He had ambition. He was astute. He was planning. He even took vocal instruction at the University of Chicago and held a sales position at WGN-TV, earning a pitiful $150 per week. However, the kicker, he was let go. Why? They discovered he was working 2 jobs. Yes, Robert was working side jobs in an attempt to break into performing, which caused a rift with his bosses. Additionally, he tried the weatherman gig, but it didn't work out. He was aware of the green screen well before wasn't where he ended up. In the early 1970s, Robert eventually appeared on TV, and boy, did he when he did glow. For every position, from SWAT to when Spenser hired Vegas, he turned into a commonplace in living rooms across America. He wasn't ostentatious or controversial. He was strong, trustworthy, and incredibly likable. He was one of TV's uncommon combos, most reliable faces. He wasn't merely, he was working. 15 distinct series, countless guest appearances. He succeeded. Appear simple. However, success in the public eye does not imply that there is calm behind it, hence it large in Hollywood. Following a performance in The Rain, a theater play in Chicago maker with Burt, an old college friend, Robert Urich Reynolds, took a risk. That would permanently alter his life. Reynolds is already preparing to become a powerful figure in Hollywood dragged him. "You've got it, child," he muttered dismissively. "Go to Los Angeles and try your hand at acting." Real shot. Urich only had to listen. He gathered his belongings and headed for it. Shortly after arriving in Los Urich landed his first TV job in Angeles, a 1972 guest appearance on the FBI. It wasn't significant, yet it was sufficient in order to gain access. Only a year, he eventually secured a leading part in the television Anahe, modification of Ted and Bob and Carol and Alice. Big break, huh? Not precisely. The program's ratings plummeted, and it wasterminated after just 6 episodes. However, Urich remained unfazed. He was only beginning. In the same year, he produced his first motion picture, and it wasn't in any anonymous indie. He co-starred with Clint Magnum Force's Eastwood, a rough, filthy, hairy follow-up. Urich performed. A motorbike cop with a tendency towards vigilantism. It was strong, it was black, and it shone that he could handle drama on the big screen, as good as television. Then, in 1975, and an additional turn of events involving Burt Reynolds. Reynolds, continuing to watch convince TV powerhouse for his friend, Aaron Spelling will try to get Urich to seeking a part in his new series with lots of action. Spelling and SWAT concurred, and when Urich read for Spelling was enthralled with the part. He threw him as the young officer Jim Streetcom police officer in the elite unit. The program was substituted in the middle of the season. However, the number of watchers surged. SWAT had everything, all of the excitement, the action, and overnight, Urich rose to fame on television. However, the show rose as swiftly as it fell. It was criticized for being too aggressive, and SWAT was removed from the air. But Urich continued to move. In 1977, he was cast in a humorous part in the hit playing Peter the Tennis in the sitcom Soap Participant. The segment was short, but unforgettable. He was cast in the same year. In the Bewitched spin-off Tabitha, portrayed Paul Thurston, a dashing, self-centered talk show presenter. The program initially had a high rating, however, it fizzled out because of bad scheduling. Only 13 episodes later, Tabitha was canceled in the part that made Robert Urich famous was in 1978. Then he was cast in the part that really made him a Vega. Dollar is a household name. Once more assisting Aaron Spelling, Urich was chosen to play Dan Tana, an elegant private investigating crimes in the neon, the streets of Las Vegas are saturated, to completely represent Urich, the tough man detective. He showed out, not just showed up. He packed on 40 pounds of solid, bulked out muscle, gaining between 180 and 220 pounds of lean on-screen power. The outcome: Vega Dollar gained popularity almost immediately. Perhaps it was the background of Vegas. Perhaps it was the large stakes and gaudy automobiles. Take action. But that was probably Urich. He held the position, and fans were unable to sufficient. He received 2 Golden nominations for the Globes and confirmed his position as a real TV star. However, even sometimes stars burn out. By the third time of year, Vega Dollar was beginning to decline in the ratings. Not much with the network's backing, ABC removed the plug in June of 1981. Suddenly, the lights in Vegas went out. However, he was far from done, Urich. Following, Robert Urich didn't slow down. Vega Dollar down. He simply changed direction. He made a contend with MGM and focus on movie. His first motion picture, produced by the studio Endangered Species, was a science fiction film. Alan Rudolph is the director of this thriller. The movie didn't do very well at the box office, however, it signaled a new phase in the Urich film. Star aspirations. The TV continued to call, return the favor. He went back to the tiny Gavilon, where he performed an oceanographer and former CIA agent. That sounds awesome, doesn't it? Regretfully, the audience remained unimpressed. The performance wasterminated after only 7 episodes, although Urich did not think about it. In 1984, he appeared in 2 films, The Unconventional Spaceways, comedy, and The Ice Pirates, the terrifying invitation to hell from Craven flick that tended towards the strange. Both were audacious decisions, yet neither turned into enormous hits. Next, Turk 182 arrived. 1985 is a heartfelt drama, but once more note of financial success. In the same year, but on TV, he struck gold once more. Urich got what would turn out to be one of his most iconic roles, Higher Spenser. As the streetwise, strong, and private eye with a heart, he held listeners' attention for 3 strong seasons. Even after the show concluded, Urich had not finished the personality. He played the part again in throughout a number of TV films, The Nines, Ritual, Pale Princes and Kings, A Savage Place, and The Judas Goat. And he was occupied with being everyone's favorite television detective. He became the host of his resume. In 1988, he started to host Explorer on National Geographic, where he revealed a side of curiosity that was more cerebral. He received a Cable Ace Award for that gig. Next arrived one of the most important, renowned endeavors of his career, 1989's Lonesome Dove. Jake was played by Urich. Former Texas Ranger Spoon has Acid Course. The miniseries was well received. Several reviewers gave Urich's performance high marks for its emotional impact and depth. In the Nines, his career continued to progress, although not everything became trapped. He participated in a series of brief television programs and films. From 1999's American Dreamer until Crossroads and 83 Hours Until Dawn, in 1992, Urich continued to look for another breakthrough series. In 1993, he collaborated with It Had to Be You with Faye Dunaway, a sitcom that quickly failed. 4 episodes, and it was finished. In 1995, he narrated a Disney documentary that is uncommon, Encounters with Aliens from New Tomorrowland. Robert's physique had turned into sensitive to the slightest motion. While traveling to appointments for chemotherapy, Ryan took great caution when driving, attempting to avoid all obstacles to protect his father from suffering. Robert died in 2002, the same year that Ryan was pursuing a college degree in biology. The witnessing his father's suffering and failing to assist turned into a pivotal moment. Ryan used his grief as a channel into direction, ultimately turning into a physician and expert in infectious diseases in New Mexico. Emily, his sister, also discovered her vocation in medicine and currently serves as a nurse at the emergency department. Their career choices weren't made at random. They were formed by seeing both the cruelty of cancer and the empathy their parents were there through it all. Robert's Heather Menzies-Urich's wife has previously lived with ovarian cancer after she assisted create the Robert Urich Foundation in order to encourage cancer sufferers and research. Following Robert's passing, she committed a lot of the cause with her life. In 2017, she was also given a terminal brain diagnosis, cancer. She died within 4 weeks. Later, with her kids by her side, the Urich children now bear that carrying on their heritage, not only in their professions, but with their continued effort the Urich Foundation. Their parents may no longer exist, but the principles they infused empathy, fortitude, and service endures in each person's life. Kids make contact. The numerous disputes of Burt Reynolds. Despite the fact that Robert Urich was highly regarded for his modesty, generosity, and steadfast commitment to charity and family, his close Burt Reynolds, a friend, lived a much longer tumultuous and contentious existence, particularly with regard to his romantic connections. This was nowhere more obvious than in his well-known union with Lonnie Anderson, an actress, union that started with glitz and glamour in Hollywood but resulted in a public display and personal demise. Anderson and Reynolds in the 1980s. They were a tabloid fantasy. He was Smokey's mustachioed star and one of the largest boxes and the bandit office magnates of his day. She was the stunning blonde from WKRP in Cincinnati, admired for her humorous timeliness and striking appearances. They were the epitome of Hollywood perfection. Couple, on the surface at least. Their officially romance started in the early 1980s, characterized by a lot of breakups and reconciliations. When they eventually, 1988, saw the couple be married in a ceremony as lavish as the general public had come to expect nothing less from 2 stars of their class. However, behind the scenes of their home, their union was starting to decay. The relationship ended abruptly, characterized by disagreements, conflicting egos, and accusations of adultery. At first, the couple kept their problems to themselves, private, with all of it spilling into the public in 1993 when Reynolds submitted a request for separation. What came next was among the most costly and messy breakup in history of Hollywood. The separation became into headline material that contains harmful charges from both parties. Reynolds demonstrated Anderson's carelessness, with money asserting that she helped him develop financial difficulties. Anderson retorted, including charges of emotional and physical mistreatment. The general public loved it, and the press's fixation on the aftermath only made the emotional harm. During that period, Reynolds was already battling the deterioration of his career as an actor and a developing mountain of debt. The court case against Anderson drove him even further into debt, ultimately prompting him to submit insolvency. The consequences weren't merely painful. For him specifically, it damaged his reputation and put a stop to his once prosperous profession. Anderson left the union worth an estimated $10 million settlement, an amount encompassing alimony, valuable goods, and prime real estate. Reynolds saw it as more than simply a setback to his financial institution. It signaled the beginning of a downward trajectory that would ultimately resulted in his Chapter 11 filing. Bankruptcy in 1996. Then, his debt had skyrocketed to $10 million, almost $20 million in today's currency. Though it's among Hollywood's most just, 10 years ago, bankable stars Reynolds was frantically trying to continue to float. He acknowledged in public that obtaining funds from friends merely to maintain your alimony payments. High extravagant lifestyle and waning career possibilities and legal complications made matters worse. Then there was more difficulty. Shortly after the dust had resolved his divorce, Reynolds got caught up in another legal conflict. This time, he's with his longtime Pamela Seals, her girlfriend. The partnership, which lasted almost a decade, came to a sour standstill that broke out into a lawsuit. Reynolds said Seals was attempting to extort millions from him using threats of accusing him of mistreating him if he didn't consent to a substantial financial agreement. The lawsuit claims that half of Reynolds' Florida was required by Seals' residence, monetary assistance for herself and her mother, as well as extra pay. Reynolds made a $1 million offer, payout, but Seals turned it down. Her demands were rejected by the legal team as essentially blackmail, stressing that because the pair had never been wed, she had no legal rights, according to Florida law. The lawsuit aimed to stop Seals from filing a lawsuit. The pair had resided in California. Momentarily, Reynolds, who was then 68, released a tense statement requesting. The circumstance was regrettable, but it made it evident that he would not give in to pressure or untrue accusations. Bob, his attorney Montgomery, observed that the performer possessable to bounce back from his previous financial difficulties, but the experience with Seals represented yet another phase in Reynolds's lengthy and intricate personal life. The two eventually discovered shared the ground. Reynolds on screen, his legacy and charisma remained indisputable. Reinforced by memorable parts in Deliverance, Boogie, Smokey, and The Bandit Off-Screen Nights, and Burt Reynolds' life was full of expensive partnerships, prominent court cases, and years of unstable finances. In contrast to his pal Urich, Robert, who was renowned for his Reynolds' stable, grounded personal life. The last years describe the tale of a Hollywood star whose own mistakes frequently threatened to eclipse his legendary career. As Robert Urich fought cancer in silence with honor and left a heritage of honesty and purpose, personal life of Burt Reynolds frequently unfolded as a warning story. He continued to be a cherished movie star, but, in contrast to Urich, his name was as frequently connected to controversy as it was with his accomplishments. Ultimately, Reynolds and Anderson's tale turned into a starcause opposed to the type of stable Urich has created a life based on morals. What did you consider Bert and Robert Urich? Reynolds' companionship. Put down your comments with your ideas. If you had fun, remember to like, share, and comment on this video. Please subscribe to our channel. Remember to view the upcoming video on your screen. You'll like it.